Maple Street was a picturesque suburban neighborhood, lined with neatly trimmed lawns, white picket fences, and houses that seemed to be lifted straight out of a storybook. Yet, among these charming homes, one house stood out like a dark spot on a pristine canvas, the old Peterson house. Its once white paint had faded to a sickly gray, and its windows, covered in dust and grime, seemed to watch the street with a menacing glare. For years, the Peterson house had remained uninhabited. Children dared each other to approach it, and rumors swirled about its haunted history. It was said that the Petersons, a quiet family of 3, had disappeared without a trace one night many years ago. No one knew where they had gone, but strange noises and flickering lights were often reported by those living nearby. The arrival of the Harrison family was the first sign of change. Adam and Emily Harrison, along with their daughter, Lily, had moved to Maple Street in search of a fresh start. The house's dilapidated state didn't deter them. They saw it as a project, a challenge to bring life back into the abandoned home. As the Harrisons settled in, the neighborhood watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The couple worked tirelessly, repairing the roof, repainting the walls, and clearing out the overgrown garden. Little by little, the Peterson house began to regain some of its lost charm. But with each improvement, the unsettling feeling that something wasn't quite right grew stronger. It started with small things: an inexplicable cold draft on a warm summer day, doors creaking open on their own, and the sound of footsteps echoing through the empty hallways at night. At first, the Harrisons brushed these off as the quirks of an old house. However, the incidents soon became more disturbing. One evening, as Emily was unpacking boxes in the attic, she stumbled upon an old, dusty diary. Its leather cover was cracked, and its pages yellowed with age. Curiosity piqued, she opened it and began to read. The diary belonged to Anna Peterson, the young daughter of the previous owners. It detailed their daily lives, filled with mundane events and childhood musings. But as Emily read on, the entries grew darker and more frantic. Anna wrote about strange occurrences, whispers in the night, shadows moving in the corners of her vision, and a cold, malevolent presence that seemed to lurk in the house. The final entry was particularly chilling. July 12th. It's getting worse. Mommy and Daddy don't believe me. They say it's just my imagination, but I can feel it. It's here, always watching. I'm scared. I think it wants us. Emily's hands trembled as she closed the diary. She couldn't shake the feeling that Anna's words were more than just the imaginings of a frightened child. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, she showed the diary to Adam that night. He dismissed it as the product of an overactive imagination, but agreed to have the house blessed by a priest, if only to ease Emily's mind. Father O'Malley arrived the next day, a kind, elderly priest with a reassuring presence. As he walked through the house, sprinkling holy water and muttering prayers, the air grew thick with tension. When he reached the attic, he paused, a frown creasing his forehead. "There's something here," he said softly. "Something dark." Emily's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "An evil presence. It's strong. It's been here a long time." Despite his efforts, the strange occurrences only intensified. One night, Lily woke up screaming, claiming that she saw a dark figure standing at the foot of her bed. Emily rushed to her daughter's room, finding her trembling and inconsolable. She tried to comfort her, but Lily's fear was palpable. "He was there, Mommy. He was staring at me." Emily and Adam took turns sleeping in Lily's room, but the figure continued to appear, always in the same spot, always watching. The family's nerves were frayed, and sleep became a rare commodity. One particularly stormy night, as thunder rumbled and lightning flashed outside, Emily woke to the sound of whispering. She sat up, straining to hear. The voices were soft, almost indistinguishable from the rain. They seemed to be coming from the hallway. She nudged Adam awake. "Do you hear that?" He listened for a moment before nodding. "Stay here. I'll check it out." Emily watched as he grabbed a flashlight and crept out of the room. The whispers grew louder as he approached the attic door. He hesitated for a moment before opening it. The flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, revealing the dusty old boxes and cobweb-covered rafters. Then, the light flickered and went out. "Adam!" Emily called, her voice trembling. There was no answer. She grabbed her phone, using its light to guide her as she followed him into the attic. The air was thick with a musty odor, and she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. "Adam," she called again, more urgently this time. Suddenly, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She screamed and whirled around, only to find Adam standing behind her, his face pale. "Emily, we need to get out of here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is it? What's happening?" He shook his head. "I don't know, but something's wrong. We need to leave now." As they hurried down the stairs, they heard a loud crash from the attic. The temperature dropped sharply, and the whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, all speaking at once. The house seemed to come alive with a malevolent energy. They reached Lily's room and found her huddled under the covers, her eyes wide with fear. Without wasting any time, they grabbed her and ran out of the house, not stopping until they were safely outside. The next morning, they decided to stay with Emily's sister, Kate, until they could figure out what to do. They contacted a paranormal investigator, hoping to find some answers. Dr. Evelyn Harper was a well-respected figure in her field, known for her no-nonsense approach to the supernatural. Dr. Harper arrived a few days later, equipped with an array of gadgets and a skeptical attitude. She spent hours examining the house, taking readings, and interviewing the Harrisons about their experiences. "There's definitely something here," she concluded. "A powerful entity. It's been feeding off the negative energy in this house for years. The Petersons must have experienced something similar before they disappeared. Can you get rid of it?" Emily asked, desperation in her voice. Dr. Harper nodded. "I'll do my best, but it won't be easy. This entity is strong. It will fight back." That night, Dr. Harper set up her equipment and began the cleansing ritual. She lit candles, burned sage, and recited ancient prayers. The air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped again. Shadows danced on the walls, and the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. As Dr. Harper continued the ritual, a dark figure materialized in the center of the room. It was tall and featureless, with eyes that seemed to burn with an unnatural light. The entity moved closer, its presence filling the room with an oppressive weight. Dr. Harper stood her ground, her voice steady as she commanded the entity to leave. The figure hesitated, then lunged at her. She stumbled back, but quickly regained her composure, raising a talisman and chanting louder. The entity shrieked, a sound that pierced the air and sent chills down everyone's spine. It writhed and twisted, as if caught in an invisible grip. Slowly, it began to dissolve, its form growing fainter and fainter until it vanished completely. The house fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, and the temperature returned to normal. Dr. Harper let out a sigh of relief, wiping sweat from her forehead. "It's over," she said. "The entity is gone." The Harrisons thanked her profusely, feeling a sense of relief and hope for the first time in weeks. They moved back into the house, cautiously optimistic that their ordeal was finally over. But as the days passed, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still amiss. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. There were no more whispers, no more shadows, but the air felt heavy, as if the house itself was holding its breath. One evening, as she was putting Lily to bed, she noticed a faint glow coming from the attic. Curiosity overcame her fear, and she climbed the stairs to investigate. The glow grew brighter as she approached, emanating from a small, ornate box sitting in the corner. She opened the box, revealing a collection of old photographs and letters. Among them was a photo of the Peterson family, smiling and happy. She flipped it over and read the message on the back. To our dear friends, the Harrisons. May this house bring you the same joy it brought us. Emily's blood ran cold. The Petersons had known them. But how? She sifted through the letters, finding one addressed to her. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means the darkness has returned. We tried to fight it, but it was too strong. We had to leave to protect our daughter. Be careful. It will come for you next. Terror gripped her heart. She realized now that the entity hadn't been banished. It had simply been lying in wait, biding its time. The Petersons had been its victims. And now it had set its sights on her family. Determined to protect her loved ones, Emily gathered the letters and photographs, hoping they might hold a clue to defeating the entity once and for all. As she turned to leave, she heard a familiar whisper in her ear. It's not over, Emily. It will never be over. She fled the attic, clutching the box to her chest. She knew now that the haunting of Maple Street was far from finished. The entity was still there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. But Emily was ready. She would fight with everything she had to protect her family. The battle was far from over, but she was determined to win. For the sake of her daughter, for the memory of the Petersons, and for the future of Maple Street, she would not let the darkness prevail.